Before we go anywhere this week, I want to ask you a simple question. Have you ever had an experience you could not explain? A moment in meditation, a dream that felt more real than waking life? A flash of knowing that something was true before you had any logical reason to believe it? Most people have, and most people never talk about it. Because they have no map for it, no language, no framework that takes it seriously. That is exactly what Module 1 is going to give you. We are going to look at the maps, all of them, ancient and modern, East and West, mystical and scientific. And we are going to ask one honest question throughout. Are these traditions pointing at the same mountain from different valleys? Or are they pointing at entirely different mountains? Let's find out together and see where these ancient and modern maps lead us. Here's the thing about navigating unfamiliar territory. You can wander into it alone with nothing but your instincts, and you might get somewhere interesting. But you will waste enormous amounts of time, make avoidable mistakes, and miss landmarks that experienced travelers have been marking for centuries. The full spectrum of human consciousness has been mapped many times. Buddhist monks charted it over 25 centuries of systematic practice. Vedantic sages described the landscape with precision that scholars still debate. Kabbalists drew diagrams of it that have survived 1,000 years. Sufi masters recorded the stations along the path in detail that would satisfy any modern researcher. And in the 20th century, researchers with scientific training, Robert Monroe, Stanislav Grof, Ken Wilber, Charles Tart, Thomas Campbell, approached the same territory with the tools of modern inquiry. What is remarkable is not how different their maps are, it is how similar they turned out to be. I want to say something that most introductory courses on consciousness never say clearly enough. The ancient cartographers were doing something recognizable as empirical research. Not speculation, not mythology, disciplined, systematic, replicable investigation of first-person experience, refined over generations. The Buddhist jhāna system did not emerge from philosophical reflection about what meditation might produce. It emerged from thousands of practitioners comparing notes about what meditation produced across centuries, in communities that kept careful records and created institutional structures for training and verification. The Vedantic tradition produced the 5 kosha model, 5 nested layers of the self from the gross physical body all the way to pure awareness. The Kabbalistic Tree of Life gave us a structural map of consciousness and reality that is still being studied and used by serious practitioners today. The Sufi tradition gave us one of the most useful distinctions, the difference between states which are transient and stations which are what you have integrated so thoroughly that they become your baseline. And the Daoist inner alchemy tradition described a 4-stage refinement process, from physical essence to vital energy, to spirit, to emptiness, that maps with striking precision onto traditions it had no contact with. When traditions with no historical connection keep arriving at the same basic topography, that is evidence worth paying serious attention to. Now let's look at the modern explorers, because this is where it gets genuinely interesting. Robert Monroe was a Virginia businessman, no background in contemplative practice, no spiritual agenda, who began having spontaneous out-of-body experiences in 1958 and spent the next 4 decades systematically mapping what he found. His focus level system describes specific frequencies of consciousness, from ordinary waking awareness all the way to states that Monroe admitted were beyond his ability to fully report. Stanislav Grof spent over 50 years as a clinical psychiatrist working with people in deep, non-ordinary states. What he documented across thousands of supervised sessions produced a cartography of the human psyche that maps with extraordinary precision onto the ancient traditions. Not because Grof was trying to match them, but because the territory kept showing up the same way, regardless of who was exploring it. Ken Wilber dedicated decades to building what he called AQAL, a map of maps. His most important contribution is a distinction between states of consciousness, which anyone can visit, and stages of development, which take real work to stabilize. You can have a peak experience of non-dual awareness without having the stable developmental capacity to live from that awareness. That is not a small distinction. Charles Tart added the systems theory insight that consciousness is not a continuous spectrum, but a collection of distinct stable configurations. That certain kinds of knowledge are only accessible from certain states. The ancient contemplative traditions, with their insistence on sustained practice as a prerequisite for specific knowledge, were not being irrational. They were responding to a genuine structural fact about how consciousness works. So, what do all these maps agree on? More than you might expect. Every major tradition, ancient and modern, recognizes what we might call a 4-level structure of consciousness. Ordinary waking awareness, a subtle or energetic level, a causal or formless level, and a non-dual or source level that transcends the previous 3. Buddhism calls them Kamaloka, the Rupa jhanas, Arupa jhanas, and Nibbana. Vedanta calls them the gross, energetic, causal, and turiya. Monroe calls them C1, focus 10 to 15, 21 to 27, and 27 beyond. Wilber calls them gross, subtle, causal, and non-dual. Different vocabulary, the same basic architecture. Every tradition also agrees on something that most people find surprising the first time they hear it. Ordinary waking consciousness is actually one of the most contracted and least expansive states available to human awareness. Every major map calls it limited, filtered, or conditioned. And at the summit of every map, language does the same thing. It runs out. Buddhism says Nibbana is neither existing nor not existing. Vedanta says Brahman is not this, not this. Kabbalah places the limitless above all description. Monroe says focus 27 and beyond is beyond his ability to report. When independent traditions all hit the same wall of language at the same altitude, that tells us something important about what is there. Before we close, I want to give you what philosopher Alfred Korzybski called the most important thing you can know about any map. The map is not the territory. That sounds obvious. It is surprisingly hard to live by, especially when a map is beautiful, internally consistent, and matches your own experience perfectly. Every cartographic system we are going to study has genuine strengths and genuine limitations. Part of what we are learning here is how to hold a map without being held by it. Use these frameworks as a navigator uses a trail map in unfamiliar terrain, carefully, gratefully, and with the understanding that the map may not capture everything you will find. The traditions that produced the best maps were the ones that kept revising them in response to new data from actual practice. The traditions that stopped revising them eventually started confusing the map for the mountain itself. Keep your pencil ready. You will be drawing your own map before this module is done. Your work this week has 3 parts. First, work through the full Module 1 course material. It goes considerably deeper into each tradition, each modern explorer, and the comparative analysis table you are going to want as a reference. Second, sit with the map comparison meditation from Section 7 of the guide. The instructions are clear, the practice is genuinely useful for what comes next. Third, complete the 2 assessments, the comparative cartography essay and your personal consciousness map. Both will be more useful to you than they may sound. Your honest baseline map from this week will look different by the end of this course. That difference will tell you exactly what changed. In Module 2, we shift from the maps to the instrument that reads them. You will have the territory by then. Over the next 2 weeks, we are going to work on the navigator. I will see you there.